you know, Tanya, I reckon it's when you get your mind so close to the calculations, you just zoom in and you start looking at the moves. You forget to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. And this is just simple stuff
Mm.
that you only see when your head isn't bogged down in the complications. You just go, okay, let me make things simple. But when you're in the frame of mind, every single move matters. And then you look at the most forcing responses, the thing that would perhaps test black, like King H2, King F1, then somehow or other, you kind of convince yourself that the moves are okay. But you just, if you zoom out, you see the
Yeah.
bigger picture, you understand this is what needs to be done. The king needed to be on a dark square in order to get the time to get those checks in.
Yes.
But
It's Queen E3 felt like Madamino wanted to be extra sophisticated in the way he approaches the attack, giving a check before driving the king out to a less desirable square. But I think Nodebek really on top of his game. As soon as the knight gets picked up, he says no more way back for you. And my king is doing absolutely fine. And again, the big difference between these two squares is that if he would have captured the knight with the king on g1, now suddenly bishop to f3 is possible. And it would still be very complicated, Ivanka, this whole line. Actually, it's not easy at all. I thought bishop e5 was the way to go, but we see that the bar disapproves of this move.
no, it's definitely
Very complicated.
not easy game at all. But it wasn't. Maybe if I could just kind of
That's the right
rewind.
move. And I have a feeling this is what Madamino missed. Simply saying that bishop to g5, it's
Mm,
not an easy find. You're hitting the rook. Your idea is bishop e3 to drive the king to the corner so they can start setting up checkmating ideas. Rook e1 is not possible. Rook d1 or rook f1. Let's just say bishop check. Come on out. You get checkmated. You go in. Bishop f4. And this is the path to equality. I have a feeling that Madamino saw queen takes knight. He saw the bishop coming back, and Ivanka just felt that maybe I need the king on f1 for a better attack rather
yeah,
than g1. Bishop g5 is not an easy spot in this position.
no, it's not an easy one at all. But can you do it actually in the game position? Can you go, no, you can't, because after bishop to g5 in the actual live position, Tanya, you'll see that there is a benefit to king f1, and that the rook can come to e1.
Exactly. Your rook is defended. There's no queen takes rook. There's no check here anymore. And
But
things remain under control. And you could threaten a checkmate in one. Now the rook becomes the perfect defender.
but this is still not very easy because the queen h2 is still in the air, and the game continues as okay. The white queen takes bishop.
I also
Simple
missed
stuff.
it. It's
Simple
only when
stuff.
the bar goes up you realize you're dropping something right now.
Okay, well, of course, that wasn't played. H5 instead was how Mukhadin is handling this position. And yes, tense position.
So h5 essentially takes away queen g4 for the rest of the
Hmm.
game. So no more queen trades for you, Mr. Abdusatrov. And I think
Can
taking on c7 is going to be very dangerous.
taking on c7, I think we can establish that is not going to give any relief to white because this is the move, and you're going to have to drop back with
Rook
your
c2.
yeah. And now queen. Can you not go queen h2?
But it's only a check on
But
g1.
it's also more checks. I have checks on g1. I'm hopefully going to
e3.
get on e3. I'm going to get on
Yes.
f2. I will keep checking along the diagonal,
Check,
and
check,
that
check,
should
check,
be
check.
enough.
Yes. And we've got moves coming in. Well, actually, we don't have moves coming in. And this feels like you hold the balance here.
Yeah. Okay, Tanya, let's quickly go to the multi-board viewer because I want to keep eyes on this game because it is on fire right now. And Nordebek, if he makes a mistake, well, you've seen he might throw away the win.
bishop.
Yeah, I can take the bishop. That was
But
but I was thinking rook h2. And I was thinking rook h2 and threatening
here.
queen h8. Yes,
But then you have a check. Don't you have
yes.
a check?
And that would have been even more sophisticated than what I had planned. I was planning a king run, but I can see that wasn't
Ooh.
necessary. But f2, yeah, of course you decoy, and suddenly rook takes f2 is forced.
But look at the structure that white black has now. So many weaknesses.
Mm.
I mean, this is just a happy position. You could fall back with your queen. You could even get your rook into the party, hitting the pawn in g4. But I want to check your idea of running away as well. So queen d6, bishop takes knight, rook takes bishop, rook h2. And I love it. King f8. Brave and gutsy, but it works, Yovi. It works. And the point is that you can give a check. You can give another check.
And then here you have to block. So this was my non too sophisticated idea, but the f2 point, that is going to be a complete just curveball into white's plan. So actually, I don't know, white has to be really, really careful. For now, the danger is on black. Black has to unpin themselves in order to meet this deadly threat of rook h2.
And I really think that queen d6 makes so much sense. It's such a multi-purpose move here. You know, you're defending the knight. You're creating this runaway path. The knight has the block on h7. If rook h2, you're happy to block that file with your knight. Does white have time to pick up the c4 pawn is my question here, because I just realized that you don't have a check on e1. The queen on
Oh.
h4 does guard that square.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to displace your rook to get to your knight.
Hmm.
And how easy is this for
This is
black?
not easy
Yeah,
at
I just
all.
hate the evaluation
Actually,
bar. It doesn't move, which means that black has a resource here. Good luck finding it.
I'm not finding it. Not a first. Just not first response. It's just a kind of. No, I think guess I would have to go rookie two or something, but I don't particularly like that. No, rookie two. Let's go of the knight.
Just take the knight, threaten a checkmate.
No, this is not easy, Tanya. You can't let the c pawn fall.
But there is something in this position. You can apparently let the c pawn fall.
Well, it it's not particularly obvious
No, it's
what.
not human at all. And if there's a way, maybe Hans Niemann will show us what's the path here. But I have to say, it feels quite difficult. You know, the last few moves that Arjun has played, just going to do a quick recap of it. Starting from this position, he calculated this line all the way from here. Arjun, in this position, instead of keeping things guarded and closed and defended, strikes with a pawn sacrifice at the center of the board with his
Mhm.
king in the open with all of Hans's army sort of set up, piled up here. Every single piece looks at this pawn, Ivanka.
Yes.
Every single piece of Hans has the square under control.
Yeah.
Gives up the pawn. Doesn't stop there. The idea is to open up the bishop. Goes for that pin. Also notice how the rook suddenly is beautifully placed for that doubling up. Hans Niemann takes the fight on. He takes the second pawn, always to be used as deflection. Also, the rooks and the queens lined up on this file. And at this moment, queen to h4.
Turning the screw, right? Because bishop takes c4 is a horrible threat, as well as rook h2.
And queen to h4 is very much needed for bishop takes pawn to be a threat, because otherwise rook e1 check and the tables completely turn around.
Yeah.
So you need your queen on h4 to safeguard that square before you pick up the c4 pawn.
Yep, exactly.
And this is not an easy position that was not played. That was just our analysis. This is not an easy position for Hans Niemann to answer back to. He's got about almost 8 minutes on the clock now.
Mm-hmm.
Ivanka, queen d6, I think Hans will spot for sure. And he's trying to work out what happens after bishop takes pawn.
And suddenly, I am struggling here to come up with a response other than jumping in with my knight. Hang on, you can jump in with a knight, right?
Knight to e4.
Knight to e4.
Takes the rook.
And then I was hoping for some f2 business.
Ooh, tricky.
No, but this is not. This is somehow you feel this is not going to be enough. What's the other direction? Because there is an f2 in the air, Tanya. So hang on a second. Is there some kind of f? No, you can't do f2 now, can you?
Can you take it with... So your idea is if rook takes pawn, then you
Yeah.
have rook e1.
Yes. But I don't.
Let's just try that because it feels like it's a line that needs to be checked. And can I don't want to take this rook. Maybe I can take it and come back with my bishop, but I feel
What has
this
he
is
gone?
the move.
He's played
Queen d6 on the
Queen
board,
d6 on the
Ivanka.
board.
I think we're
Okay.
going to see this being played out. And you know what? I'm not even going to switch on the engine and say what's the best move here because I have a feeling that after the queen has moved, Arjun, if he doesn't play bishop takes pawn, how about this, Ivanka, as a deal? If Arjun doesn't go bishop takes pawn, we'll take help from Mr. Fish and figure out what was the best move. I think it feels almost superhuman to find it.
Hmm.
But Hans Niemann, has he worked out a response to Arjun's bishop takes pawn? Is the big question. Trying to deflect that black rook, trying to get to that knight on f6.
Well, he has to have worked out what's going to happen after bishop takes c4 because I got to tell you, bishop takes rook incoming, bishop takes knight is in the air, the rook is still threatening to come over to h2. And where is black's counterplay? And so you have to start looking at the really desperate moves. I mean, could it be, Tanya, something as simple as you give up the exchange, but you go knight h7?
I think you have to give up the exchange because there's just no square for the rook to move to. You
Yeah.
can't give up the knight on f6. So the idea, whatever the computer is
Hmm.
suggesting, has to be around sacrificing this exchange at the right spot. Yavanka, I have a feeling that Arjun will play bishop takes pawn on this position.
And humor me, knight h7. So I'm not going to go for any funny business, no rookie twos, knight h7. And just as we do that, we have a transition. And oh, look, look at that. The evaluation bar hasn't moved.
Oh, and Arjun goes
Bishop
for bishop
takes
takes pawn on the board. Knight h7. Yavanka, what a spot. I'm still trying to figure out what's your idea in this position because I'm coming for your rook on e6.
I have an idea. I have one idea. Knight takes bishop.
All right, I take it back.
Queen takes, and then queen g3. Check.
Ooh.
Now, if you step on the wrong square, Tanya,
wow.
king f1, it would be
Wowza.
the balestra check almost.
But it doesn't even matter. You could just take on e6. I mean, this is just a killing attack right now.
Actually, if you go king f1, there is no bishop checkmate because there is a pin on the board.
Also, there's ideas like f2
Yeah.
in the air. Your queen, you can give a check. But
Okay, he's found
knight
knight
e7. What a move by Hans Niemann.
And he doesn't take any time to find it. It took me
right
a while. Yeah.
I mean, we could go back and forth with our lines.
Yes.
We could take forever to figure this out. We had the evaluation bar guiding us, what's right, what's wrong. And then we came to this realization. Hans has it all worked out in his mind already. Knight h7, found by Hans, the only move to keep a balance, a brilliancy on the board. And Ivanka, your idea to take this knight, you can't recapture. The black queen comes in with a devastating attack, which means that white is forced to retreat with the bishop somewhere.
Yes.
You cannot give up two minor pieces. And I'm wondering what's the right square right now because it starts looking so dangerous with this f-pawn if I get out of this way and the e-file opening up.
Okay, well, we have to be concrete. Bishop to c4. Let's get out of the way. And the evaluation
Can I go queen
bar.
to f4? I'm coming in. I'm defending my knight. And I'm hoping that you decide to put your rook on h2, which feels like it's the right move.
But f2.
Yes, I was hoping to get a knight f3
Knight
in.
f3. Maybe this is... No, this doesn't even feel like a survival.
Can
King
I show
f1.
you a pretty line?
Oh, very nice.
Takes,
Takes.
queen.
And I think you'll
You know
find there's a knight fork at the end.
Yes, and I would even make it into a rook.
Oh, hang
just
on.
to be fancy.
Yes.
And give you a check.
And if you take with the... You can only run with the king. So...
All right, so this is the position knight h7 played. Did Arjun see this idea or is he surprised? I think he's slightly taken aback with this resource because, you have a feeling Arjun calculated this line about 6 moves ago, right? When he played e4, he would have seen this. He would have come to this conclusion, Ivanka, because it's pretty linear. When you play e4, I'm going to just backtrack. Live board, bottom right. When you play e4, you're looking at pawn takes pawn. You know you have to grab this pawn if you're Arjun. You have to check what happens if the pawn arrives on f3. That's the second move. Arjun spotted queen h4 and he played queen h4 in under 1 minute. After this, queen d6 is the only move to save the game, and Arjun instantly, Ivanka, after queen to d6, once again replied in about a minute and a half, capturing c4. This was all calculated by Arjun when he went for the idea of e4 and knight to h7, which is what Hans has spotted. I think this is the move that Arjun missed in his line.
Yeah, knight to h7, such a beautiful retreating move. And I got to say, you got to go bishop takes rook. Is there any possibility of going rook to h2?
At least knight takes g5 will not be an option. The bar completely drops Yovi, and I'm just wondering if you throw in a spanner with f2. All right, not the best.
No.
Not the best. Take that back. But now my knight is defending the checkmate. I simply
Exactly.
move my rook somewhere. Okay, maybe just e4. This is guarded. This is guarded. This is guarded.
Yeah,
E7's
e4.
guarded. Only square.
Yes.
Process of elimination. You place your
Yeah.
rook there.
And rook takes g4 is there.
Rook takes d4 is there.
Oh gosh. I
Just
was just thinking queen d7, rook takes g4, and it's going to be very difficult to stop that. So bishop takes rook. Only move there for Arjun to survive.
I love this fine by Hans. And Arjun now has to walk into tread carefully, but he has to walk into that forest of complications. Bishop takes rook. Knight takes bishop is what Hans Niemann has set up. And then it starts getting very risky. Ivanka, can you try to get rid of a key defender here for bishop and go bishop to f5? My dream here is that if you take this bishop, I take it, and at least you don't have the f4 square.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, bishop
Maybe
f5
even
is
this
quite
is
nice.
interesting, but at least you have bishop to g6.
Yeah, maybe this is the way forward because as we saw, it was getting really tricky with a bishop to c4. And now at least here you get rid of some defenders. Is there any kind of queen f4? You were doing queen f4 to me, but that's bishop takes bishop.
This is still a game. It's still a game on. I mean, you're down in exchange, but you have all these ideas of f2 and the knight jumping in.
Yeah, and the knight is a very horrible piece because I mean, if you go bishop takes bishop,
Yes.
pawn takes,
Okay.
and now here if you go rook takes b6, just to put idea on the board, you got our f2 business,
Yes.
and then if you go king f1, it's the same trick again,
Oof.
rook to e1, and then the old fork.
The good old folk.
Yeah.
And this would be game over. So Arjun needs to be very careful. And again, the bar says that this position is equal, but it's anything but peaceful on the board. It's anything but equal. It's just showing that if white and black can be very precise, the balance remains. But this doesn't. 0.0 never means a draw in such a position.
No.
In fact, the least likely result is a draw.
Unless it's perpetual, unless the computer is visualizing some crazy perpetual at the end, in which case, yes, it is 0.0, but the players have to get there. And we've already seen it's a minefield, Tanya, here. Bishop takes rook, only move. Arjun can't be swayed into going rook h2. That would simply hand black the initiative and the game. And we also saw that after bishop takes rook, probably the best thing is after knight takes bishop is to go bishop f5, but it's still massively complicated. Of course, he takes the rook. That is one of the best moves.
Whoa, he doesn't take the bishop on g5. No, he had to take the. No, wait,
He
what? He
doesn't.
had
He
to take the
doesn't.
bishop on g5.
That was a very quick move there from Hans.
And apparently a different approach, but an equally good one, Ivanka.
Okay.
He does keep the position under control. No rook to h2 yet. Everything is still fine. Rook takes bishop, rook e2 ideas in the air, rook e4 lining up and winning the g4 pawn as well. Hans Niemann playing an exchange down just like Madaminov and going for the white king.
Yeah, so we have two razor sharp games. The players currently on move 36. And I'm just going to say, both players are on 3 points. A win would get them into second place,
Yes.
half a point behind the leaders. And with 2 rounds left,
It keeps the
absolutely
race.
anything can happen.
Yeah, the race really tight. I want to quickly bring up our bird's eye view because I want everyone to see the similarities of the dynamics that exist in these two absolute firefighting games that we have. Keep an eye on the bottom left, Nodebek Abdusatro versus Madaminov, and right next to that is Arjun Aragaisi versus Hans Niemann. Those are the two games in the bottom row. Look at how the computer evaluation is pretty much level and the similar dynamics in the position. Nodebek has an extra exchange. Arjun Aragaisi has an extra exchange. Both players playing with the white pieces. Knight bishop bishop dynamic in both the games right now. Opposite color bishops as well. In both the games, it's all about fighting for the squares which your opponent cannot challenge on the board. And it's really fascinating that the fact that Hans Niemann, because there is an extra pair of rooks on the board, that gives him attacking chances, which is what is missing for Madaminov.
Yeah, that is exactly what is missing from Madaminov's game as he looks to generate some form of counterplay. But I gotta say, Nordebek Abdusattorov doing some nifty repair work. Look how the queen is right next to the king there on the bottom left. and also how the rook comes on c7, keeps the knight on g7 honest. And one final game in progress, as we can see on our screens, and that is Vidit Gujarati and Nicholas Theodorou, both of them having quite a tough tournament. And it looks like Vidit's woes continue, as he did have a very promising position, but now it's not so easy. So we've got to focus on the games that are razor sharp, and that is Arjun Erigaisi and Norbek Abdusatorov. And both these players around 36 move mark. And we have Tanya, your move on the board there on the bottom right, rook e4.
Yes, I did see Hans just make this move so quickly, playing so confidently. He's got the material deficit, but he's on the offense here. He's on the attack, getting to that white king. But we'll move over to our tournament leader, Madaminov, currently taking on Nodebek Abdusatro with a very creative exchange sacrifice. But it looked like Nodebek had found his way out, but he's back in the game, is Mukadin. He's got a pawn for an exchange, gets a good move avoided. That bishop is heading to b6. The queen's ready to line up. Again, it's all the fight and play on the dark squares.
Yes, and what a beautiful retreat there from the bishop. We arrived actually to see queen to b1 given a question mark. I think that's a little bit harsh. This position is tremendously complicated for both sides, but I love this move. And as you mentioned, Tanya, this is simply setting up a queen and bishop battery on the dark squares. Look at that. G1 is a sensitive spot. So rook to b7 or wherever the rook goes, bishop b6 is going to be the answer.
What Nodebek set up is the idea of capturing on h5 because it spins galore, right? The knight on g7, the pawn on g6. But maybe it's not enough because black is coming in with all the ideas on the dark squares. And I'm just going to do a quick action replay, Ivanka. We left it last when the bishop fell back, boxing up the white queen. We saw the move h5 here by Madaminov, taking control of the g4 square. No trades for you. And after h5, queen to d3. Setting up the idea of rook takes pawn. It's advantage white in this position. The extra exchange doing the talking. The queen beautifully centralized, taking control of the dark squares. Your bishop can't fight for it. What do? You use your queen. Bishop goes back to g5. And this is what he had set up against the skewer, offering a queen trade, still keeping the exchange. You have to keep fighting for your knight to come into the game. Not allowed. White picks up a pawn. Black picks up a pawn. And after queen to b1, which was given a question mark, white needed to be very careful in this position, but it's just not an easy position. You can't fault the players for making inaccuracies here. And Mukadin finds a beautiful bishop maneuver, rerouting it to the other side of the board. Just recognizing where the pieces belong to put maximum pressure on that white king. Rook to d7 hits the bishop, expecting Mukadin to continue with plan here. But Jovanka, let's just take a look at what happens if white was to grab the pawn on h5. Immediately the bar says, this is lost. Queen f4 check, but the bishop comes back.
Queen
c4 check.
Yes, and you're going to have to block that one again.
Yes.
And now you can go
threaten some checkmates. Where do you line up? c5?
I thought queen d4. I don't know why. I thought queen d4 just as
also really nice. I'm not sure what's the difference.
I don't know what the difference is either, but somehow there is a difference.
I think the difference, Ivanka, could potentially be that queen c5 allows a sacrifice on g7 and a check on b2. And suddenly the queen will defend everything. The king starts running opposite color bishop. Queen d4 is just game over.
Okay, queen to d4. Still danger in the air. Some thought that for Mukadin as he ponders where to go. I mean, he set it up so beautifully.
He's going to go bishop
He's
b6.
going to go bishop
he
to
has
b6.
To go.
And what happens? What happens after rook takes d6? So this is the only move that I can think of that is concerning him. But now is the time for the knight to step in, right?
You've unpinned. Let's go in and you give a check.
And now you've got to be super careful where to run with the king.
I'm not even going to pretend like I know whether h8 is better or h6 is better. You know, it just feels like the king on h8 will maybe potentially run into some checks. The king on h6 will run into some checks on c1, Jovanka.
But both of them you can block with the bishop on b6. This is why it's such a beautiful maneuver.
Let's go to h6 to not have any back rank problems.
Exactly, yeah. So queen c1. And so my idea was the bishop will come in. And you can't get too active with the queen because white's king, not so stable
Checkmate
either.
in one or not? There's still g5.
Yeah, there's still
okay,
g5.
What are the chances that this happens?
Quite a lot.
0 is what I would say, Yovi. By the way, bishop b6 on the board, so maybe that just went up from 0 to 20 for me. Bishop b6, rook takes pawn is the way to go for Norderbeck, keeping the d4 square under control. Can I try to use my queen instead? Can I go queen to b2? I'm threatening checkmate in one now. I'm taking control of the d4 square.
Okay, so we have to block, or we can throw in a check.
So
let's block. Bishop to d4. I do not want to be blocking with the queen. Thank you very much.
bishop to d4.
Yeah. And again, white has to be mega careful with where they put the queen.
It's fascinating that Nodebek has the material deficit, but he's the one who needs to be so careful. The
Yes,
power of the bishop, Jovanka.
exactly. And it's control of the dark squares. And it's not just that, Tanya. It's also the king on f1. Like, for instance, queen to b2, bishop to d4. The queen has to stay in contact with the b pawn because queen takes b5 is in the air.
Oops, not that one.
So this one, you know, it's so sharp in both games, Tanya. Both of them around the 38 move mark.
Oof.
And maybe would be great if we could have a two board view.
But Yavanka, the other game, I have my eye on it, and I don't think Arjun has Arjun taken a decision after the rook move. Let's go quickly back to that one.
Yeah.
We'll jump in as Nodebek is having a think. It's a tricky one. I'm expecting him to take a couple of minutes to decide which path he chooses there. I'm going to quickly take us over to Arjun versus Hans Niemann. And in fact, Arjun did make a decision. This is where we left it. Rook to e4. The last few moves, so impressive by Hans. Setting up the idea of queen to e6 or to d7 at the right time. Not just that, you could also use your bishop and pawn to join the attack against the g4 square. Bishop falls back.
Well, now your question actually is really pertinent. What happens if you go f5? Why not threaten rook takes g4?
Did he go? He goes the other way. Another move that we were recommending. f5, very strong, Yovi, but it feels like a little tough to play. You know, you're looking at the king sliding over. You've made some weaknesses
That's
on your
true.
own king. So I do like Hans's approach. It feels more human. You hit the pawn, you keep your king safe.
Everything is connected to each other. Yeah, I like this. And now Arjun, 3 minutes and 48 seconds. He has to find a move. What is his move? I mean, you can't defend g4 actually. So you have to just start running.
Either
with your
you move
king.
your queen or your king. It has to be one of the two to hide against the threat of rook takes pawn.
But also, once this happens, where are you going to run with the king? There is going to be a check. Instinctively, I'm feeling that the corner is not safe.
No. And I'll tell you why you feel that, because I completely sense it. King h1, rook takes pawn, and suddenly there are ideas of the queen coming back or the bishop lining up on e4, the pawn moving forward. It just feels incredibly boxed up the king here, like you're in a kill zone right now.
Yeah. No. It feels like you have to do Norderbeck. And you have to run to the F line.
You know, you might be right. And I just want to point out, it feels that white is holding everything, not allowing the pawn to move forward. But suddenly the knight frees up, coming onto the center of the board. Knight f6, knight e4 ideas. And the bar does approve of it. Will be a huge compensation. And Nodebek does just that. He's hiding on the F line. He is, sorry, Arjun even. He does channel his inner Nodderbeck with the king going over to the f2 square, Jovanka. This has been played. He's walking into a check on e2, but saying that if you do go for that,
king takes
F3. My king is going up the board.
And it's going to live a very courageous and brave life. And
leading
it will
from
be
the front like a true king.
Exactly. Like a reckless king, but it's good enough. It's brave enough. So you can't do that. But rook takes g4 is the move that kind of speaks to me. And then the queen has got to move. Where she goes, no one knows.
I'll tell you where it doesn't go. You might not have too many squares. Actually, queen h6 process for elimination. Queen h3 just walks into a check on g2.
Yeah. Well, okay, the danger's there. He's reaching to take the g pawn.
He does it. I think we're about to see this move. I again want to point out queen h3 runs into rook g2. You can't take that rook because the queen on h3 is hanging. And if you now pick up the pawn on f3, well, you're going to end up getting checkmated. And if you fall back with your king, then suddenly, well, a lot of lines, but at least you can even pick up the queen and pick up the bishop. I'm expecting there's probably something more devastating after a check on d3.
Well, he didn't do that. That pitfall was avoided. Queen h6. And now...
Only move.
Well, okay, now for Hans, he has to find another move to continue the momentum. Because I have a suspicion king takes f3 is definitely part of Arjun's agenda. Also, there's ideas of tripling on the h line. So both sides have a lot of play. What next?
I'm also just going to say that I have my eye on the other board, and not a single move has been made by Nodebek since we last left it, which just shows how incredibly difficult that position is. Mukhiddin finding this beautiful bishop maneuver. It's still Nodebek on the move. We'll go there once Abdusattorov finds a response. This one, meanwhile, moves coming in fast and quick, Yavanka. Queen h6 on the board. I'm expecting Hans Niemann to find a way to activate the queen. The knight can't move, you got checkmate. The rook on g4 looks beautiful. King takes pawn might be a threat in this position, something to keep an eye on. Bishop e4 comes to mind, but then you're allowing a rook trade on g1.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say this is going to be Hans's 40th move. So I don't think he's going to be playing anything committal.
Mm.
I think he's just going to be looking at keeping the balance. That's good technique because it's infamously known that in chess, so many blunders happen on move 40, move 41 because you rush that moment.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Black or rook takes pawn here?
I would say it's not practical.
I knew, the only reason I'm asking you this question is because of what you just said about 40th move, taking committal decisions.
Exactly. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Do it when you've got your extra time in the clock and then you can think about it. Just make some random move that keeps everything well connected.
Have you seen the nature of this position? Where are the random moves
Queen
that you're
d6.
finding?
Queen d6 to threaten queen g3. That's
Oh,
something that
that
I
does
would
look
be
nice.
playing.
That looks very nice.
That's something
actually.
I would be playing just so that, everything's connected because I have been told off so many times by our dear friend David Howell. Shout out to David. Don't
David.
make anything committal
On move
until
40.
on move 40. Yeah, you can wait.
I hear you, and the moment you point out queen d6, I love the move, but can we please look at rook takes pawn? Because
Yeah.
I have ideas of my own. I'm hitting your bishop. I also see tactics of LPDO, loose pieces, drop off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, 3 minutes and 50 seconds. I reckon
Where are
that
his
Hans.
eyes? What do you think he's looking at?
I think he's gonna go queen d6, queen somewhere, queen
d6, c7, threaten an
yeah.
infiltration. All right, I'm gonna check. I'm not gonna go too deep, but I want to see if the bar reacts to rook takes pawn. Oh, and it does, Yovi. But not by super much, by the way. And the idea is that if you take here, queen takes pawn. Wow, this is advantage white. And I was thinking, wait a second, you block, I take your rook. I've got 3 pawns and a bishop, Yavanka. 3 pawns and a bishop for an exchange. Yavanka, you're not listening to me.
Sorry, yes, I know. Got caught out there.
3 pawns and a bishop for an exchange. A knight, even, but an opposite color bishop
Yeah.
position.
Yes, yes, yes. I get that. But there's a lot of risk here in case, I can see the knight and the bishop are not the most active piece. So that's the only thing that makes me worried about going into a position like
I'm
this.
only worried that someday you
Yes,
land
that
on
was what I was
d4.
worried about. Bishop to d4.
You can even maybe just go forward with your rook, defend the pawn, bishop d4 threaten. That's
Yeah.
my only worry.
No, I'm also with you. But it's also because the bishop and knight are just there on the edge of the board. And I feel
Yes.
like this is the kind of position where
I don't
you
have
know,
knight f6, knight g4
you need
because you're checkmating.
every single piece working in order to get the real compensation. And as the clock ticks down for Hans,
Let's move over to Nodrbek as the clock ticks down on this board right now, because Nodrbek Abdusattorov has taken a decision, and we'll quickly bring that board up. We left it last, Yavanka,
yeah,
with bishop to b6, queen to d3, stopping queen d4, and queen a2 is threatening checkmate in one. Nodrbek ready with his response with bishop to e2.
yes. Very nice move there. And we see Hans reaching for the queen. Queen to d6. Move 40 has been made. Players do get an extra 30 minutes on the clock. And I think the players will use that time very wisely. First up to catch their breath, because that was quite the frantic game, especially with all the complications. And going to this game, they've just completed move 40 and it's Nordebek to play.
And both positions on fire. Once again, these are our 2 marquee matchups right now. We've got one more game remaining as we pull up our bird's eye view. We've gone into time control. The players will get an additional 30 minutes once their clock hits a zero mark right there. We bring up our multi-board view currently, and there we see Vidit Gujarati is back on the push, on the advantage. He's staring at his first potential win of UZChess Cup against Nicholas. Up a piece, top right board there. It's an extra bishop for Vidit. A couple of pawns on that left flank, two pawns, but beautifully guarded by the knight, bishop, and king. So really no progress there. Does Vidit have the technique and the confidence after everything that's happened to convert this one? I say Vidit gets his first win today, Yovi. The top two boards have already finished in a draw, a peaceful result, and it's been fire, fire, fire on the bottom row there. Nordebek Abdusatrov up and down there. Nordebek on the advantage. Now it's equal with the white king struggling to remain in the game. The dark square full control for Madaminov. On the other side, Arjun Aragaisi, Hans Niemann. What a game this is. What a board this is. Hans now threatening to infiltrate with a massive check on g3.
That is a huge threat. You need to guard against Arjun. Will have to play very precisely. And there we see a move there on the bottom left. G4, that is going to pile on the pressure on the tournament leader, Madiminov. And now he has to respond as his king is now in danger. But the players have reached move 40. They do have that extra 30 minutes on the clock to think things through. And after that, like nail biting action, Tanya, I think it's time for us to catch our breaths. And for you at home as well to catch your breaths. Now's the perfect time to stock up on food and drinks and get ready for the end game that is coming your way in a few minutes. We are back with what is going to be the conclusion of round seven of the UZChess Cup Masters. And we've had an exciting day, a lot of fire on the board, a lot of action. And we're going to bring up the multi board viewer because we've had two games already finished. There was a draw between Norbek Yakuboev and Yana Pomniachi, as we expected, very level there. And also a draw between Shakriar Mamajarov and one of the tournament leaders, Shamsuddin Vohidov. So as it stands, Shamsuddin Vohidov is in the lead, but three games in progress. And Tanya, the evaluation bar, is telling us that finally Vidit Gujarati is going to win a game as he plays Nicholas Theodorou.
That's an extra pawn in the knight pawn endgame. And as they say, a knight and pawn endgame is so close to a king and pawn situations that this means that with it has that extra pawn, the king and the knight will move forward. The left flank of the board, a lot of weaknesses. It's a matter of technique, Ivanka. You push that king forward, he pushes the pawn. You just assist that with your king and knight coming into the center of the board. Vidit Gujarati looks like he's about to score his first win of UZChess Cup, but it's all action on our bottom two boards. And first, right there, we've got with it, Nicholas expecting handshakes there. Well, Nicholas might try to hold on, but I think Vidit's got the technique. He needs to take
Yes.
this one. But Ivanka, our main matchup, Nodebek versus Madaminov, and Arjun Eragaisi taking on Hans Niemann is where the action's at.
Yes, and we're going to go directly to the game between Arjun Erigaisi and Hans Niemann. Both of these players are on 3 points
And
out
let's
of six.
bring that up right
Let's
now
bring
as
that
we
up.
go into Arjun Aragaisi taking on Hans Niemann right now. It is absolute madness. He's called the madman of chess, Arjun Aragaisi, for a reason, Yavanka. Arjun's king has landed on that starting position currently. King on e1, Hans's knight and rook have landed up the board right now. The queen ready to infiltrate. But as I look at black's plans here, white's also ready to land a check at the bottom of the board. How dangerous and how scary is this move queen to a3 right now for Arjun Aragaisi?
Well, it looks really scary with the queen snaking around the back, but there are a few checks in the air for the white rooks. So let's definitely deeper dive, Tanya, and go queen a3. Let's just work it out, have the fun, because this is the type of position where anything can turn on one move.
Absolutely. I'm just going to do a quick action replay from when we went on the break, Yavanka, because every move has been a high responsibility move in this position. And we left it last right about here. We saw the queen come in with a deadly threat. The queen falls back to take that safeguard, that square. Hans Niemann defends the rook, consolidates it. The rook lines up all three pieces. It's the Alekhine battery on the right side of the board. The knight making sure that yes, you can give in a check, but after king f7, everything is safe. The knight landing onto the center of the board with a devastating check. Instead, Arjun picked up the pawn on f3. You do arrive with the check. The white king has to stay connected to the bishop. We saw king to e1. And Yavanka, this is where we are. Hans Niemann still on the think, and it's got to be this move on his radar. My arrows are wonky, the position's wonky, but the queen is about to land in there.
The queen is definitely going to land, and I'm just monitoring the action on the other game, and I can see that it's looking super nice. So let's quickly dive into this one. We have the time, Tanya, with the players getting that extra 30 minutes on the clock. So I think they will have to be very leisurely about this one, certainly with the clock usage. Queen a3, and now rook to h8 is the natural kind of move already. Is this a good move or is this simply wrong? King goes to...
It's tough to pick, and I just don't want to place it on a dark square because somewhere I'll allow a check with the bishop. So you know what? I run towards the center. I want more breathing space right now. And I
Yeah.
don't know if I have to be precise here, but probably king f7 feels more like the hand move for me.
Yes, it does as well. Travel on the light squares. Don't let the white bishop get into the game. And still, it's going to be really difficult for Arjun to even try to penetrate the position. So he's going to be looking at moves such as queen to d3, trying to also come around the end. And that was already a mistake.
This is the big threat, right? You go
King
here,
e2.
king e2, and suddenly a check and a check on the third rank will finish off the game, Yovi. This is just very, very deadly for white.
Very dangerous. So you can't play that. You can't just make any old move. So much problems for Arjun as he faces the
Do you
barrage
think
of
Hans
checks.
Niemann goes for this? Will
Yes.
he bring in? It's three is the magical number, right? For an attack, you've got your rook knight at the center of the board. Bring the queen in, and I have to say, a queen knight and a rook is the most powerful combination when we speak of a three-piece attack.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's not going to be very easy for the white queen on f3 to even dream of getting involved because,
And
as
that's the
you've
thing.
highlighted,
If you can just only get the queen to this side of the
it would
board,
be a menace. But as it stands, there's just no way in. So,
Question.
yes.
Can white try to get the queen in this way? If I'm not getting checkmated, then I want to go queen h8 and I want to slap my rook down the board, give it up,
Yeah.
and then start threatening the black king.
Okay, well, we can try queen a1 check.
Yes, and I see. Ooh,
And
wait,
then the
what?
answer is yes.
I thought king e2 and you've got knight g3
Mm.
check winning the rook.
Well,
What's the
maybe this
problem?
this is not good enough. Maybe knight to
Check.
g3. The king steps somewhere.
What?
Just step up the
Okay.
board.
I'm scared to make any move.
Okay, that was
Oh,
the
and the
wrong
bar
one,
saying
Tanya.
no.
Okay, let's go king d3. I don't know
Okay,
why.
you've got only 3 squares, so we'll
Yes.
try each one of them. It's so
No,
hard.
that was
No,
a bad
this
one.
one just means
No, no.
f4 and you're getting
Yeah,
checkmated.
okay. This is not what I
So
want.
it has to be. What?
No, okay. Oh, queen takes knight, Tanya. Of course.
Oh, of
The
course. The pitfalls
yeah.
of commentary here, and then suddenly the queen on a1 falls. Took us a while to find that one, but it just shows how difficult the position
Yes.
can be when you've been commentating on multiple games for several hours.
Exactly. No, it's not easy to commentate and
Okay, but
also keep the energy, but the players will certainly be stocking up. So you can't go queen to a1 because of this deadly idea. Queen h8, rook h7 is going to be the follow up.
yes,
So how to handle that? Could you just run with the king? King f7.
run, Forest, run.
Yes.
And you're making an argument that now if I go in, it doesn't come in with a check, so it gives me the time to give you a check.
Yeah, and there is
and
no
then you go knight
queen
g3.
takes knight.
And
Yes.
there is no queen picking up that knight, so that's a free check for me. I like it, and I'm surprised that this is still in balance. Again, I'm not even going to try to calculate which king move is better. This time I got lucky. I moved it up the squares. Knight takes rook, and Ivanka, this is an equal position.
Yeah, because I suspect that white is going to just give up the rook in order to infiltrate, like, and give some checks.
But I would be very surprised if this is a perpetual, and it isn't.
It isn't.
It isn't. It just feels like your king is going to hide here. The queen doesn't have g8, does
No.
not have g6, and h6 feels too far off. The black king getting closer to the queen as well on the king side, and then you just block.
At some point, I'm going to have to calculate, and you're going to force me to do what I don't like to do. Okay, so let's take that one back and come up with a different move, but it feels very scary to allow the white queen in. And I do feel like Arjun is going to have to tread exceptionally carefully.
It feels like it's definitely more terrifying for Arjun Argaisi right now, even though he's got the extra exchange, and it feels like you're coming in with all the firepower. But again, the rook knight and the queen, deadly, deadly combo. By the way, Hans on the camera, it feels like he's not super sure of which direction to take.
No,
Calculating lines.
he's looking at the queen side, Tanya.
Yeah, he looks at the queen side, then he looks at that h8 square.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Because
he
he's just
is
making
looking at
sure.
this. He's looking at this line. I think queen a3 he spots, and then I saw him kind of focusing on that block next to the black king. So that's where his attention is at. Looking at this line that we've got on our board would be my guess.
Right, and he has to check that queen h8, followed by rook to h7.
So for example, let's just give a check here, and he's seen king to e2, and let's make a move with the queen. And
Yeah.
show the problem. And there we have
Okay.
it. He's reaching for the queen. Queen a3. It
Queen
does
a3,
land.
it
It
does
does
land.
land. Well done.
Well,
We
it was
can pat ourselves on
you've
our
been
back.
suggesting that one, Tanya. So you can give yourself a pat on the back as queen a3 is played. And now for us, and I would also suspect for Arjun, he's going to go into deep thought because he has to work out a way to get the queen on f3 involved into the position, because otherwise black is going to take over. And yeah, as Tanya's indicating, there are some checkmating ideas if you allow the queen and rook to start infiltrating on the king side. So queen h3 kind of feels like it's only move territory. Is it?
I just feel like this position has so many pitfalls and minefields in it that you find one line where you feel safe. I would just instantly play it, just thinking that queen h3, at least I secure a bailout option. But that's just the chicken in me talking. Because Arjun has an extra exchange. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to keep the tension on the board.
Do you know something,
Tell
Tanya?
me.
Do you know my ultimate chicken move
Yes,
would be
tell me. Give me
queen
your-
queen e2 or queen d1. That's like going to
I
be the
mean, this has to be
ultimate
the
chicken.
absolute ultimate.
Yeah,
You're just getting ready, the king is back to its starting position, the
exactly.
queen's there. Basically, more than half your pieces are ready for the next game.
Exactly. And I'm sorry. Sorry, Tanya. I've done something to the chair.
Oh, she need help.
I do need help.
Okay, here you
Thank you
go.
very much. I fidgeted a little bit too much on this one because it's exciting chess and one cannot help but get carried away. So queen to d1, queen e2 is be
So,
another chicken
queen
of mine.
d1, you're just making a case that you're not allowing any checks on the
Yes,
board.
yeah.
What is your reply? I'm not going to have it on the board because I feel like I'm walking into something, but do you have a reply to knight takes pawn?
No, I didn't have a plan. But this is why my second ultimate chicken move was queen e2, but I didn't have a reply to queen takes a4.
Well, queen e2, at least you'll have
Yeah,
queen
exactly,
c4, right?
exactly. And if you go queen a1, then I am blocking that with the queen. So that was my
Okay, I feel like knight
zero
takes pawn, I'm
calculation.
walking into something, but Ivanka, I want to see what that is because
Yeah, the evaluation bar doesn't hate what the chicken has done.
no,
Maybe you go
it
queen.
doesn't at all.
Maybe you go queen c2. Maybe
But
it
why
was.
not knight takes pawn is my question.
I have an idea.
Curiosity
Okay, queen c2.
after knight takes pawn.
Yeah, knight takes pawn, queen c2, and then the whole idea is that actually it was a freak pawn, but it was a little bit poisoned.
Check on e7. And then
And then
check on e2.
king f1. No,
Oh,
there's no,
you're
because
not
the
going
rook.
king f2. I was hoping for
No,
king f.
no, king f1.
Let me show
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Knight takes pawn, queen to c2, and I mean it's still in the balance. Queen check,
King f1.
king f1 only move.
Yeah, and now my queen gets the beloved c8 square.
But does it? Does it?
Yeah, queen c8 check.
I don't care. I don't care.
Oh,
I literally don't care.
you
As someone very famous said.
well, I thought you should care, but again, I didn't have my calculation hat on. Yeah, maybe you don't need to care. Yeah, and I was thinking rook h7, and I was like, ha,
Yes,
bada
but
bim, bada boom, but you can take everything and block. So, okay, the game kind of still continues.
in the balance, of course.
Yes, and that will probably fizzle out to something completely even. So after the fireworks,
How's Arjun feeling about the position? Can we get a read on that? You know what has always impressed me about Arjun so much and watching him on the board, Ivanka, is that you see the kind of positions that you never get to see in chess. I mean, how bizarre is the board in front of us right now? White's king has landed at the center, the starting position. The two rooks have doubled up on the h file. No pawns in front of the black king. But you've got this menacing attack brewing. And Arjun doesn't feel phased at all. There's no big shaking of the chair going on.
oh yeah,
There's no quick glances at the clock, glances on the board, looking, staring into
no,
nothingness. He's just a picture of calmness, just trying to work all of it out. It's like Arjun feels most at home when the house is on fire.
wow. I guess some people rise to the challenge. Some of us just run around like headless chickens, going, oh my God, the sky is falling down." So, okay, Tanya, this position is razor sharp, but I also got to direct our attention to our marquee matchup, which is between Norbek Abdusattorov and Mukhadin Madaminov, because Madaminov currently is with 4 points out of 6. A win would give him a sole lead with 5 points. A draw would give him a slice of shared first alongside Shamsuddin Vohidov. And if we can backtrack a few moves, because we see some progress being made, we see the queen and the bishop on the same battery, but I'm surprised that the game still continued because I thought that it was maybe a chance that we could see a repetition.
And we left it here when the black went for Mukhadin. He's threatening a checkmate in one, which was blocked. We saw the bishop defend the d6 pawn. And then after white tries to open up more lines towards the black king, the queen falls back, hitting the rook, also eyeing checks on the f line right now. When the rook moves away, a check on a dark square. Again, the white king just not feeling safe. If you hide on g2, the queen does infiltrate, and that will be checkmate on the next move. So blocked, and we see once again. You know what, Ivanka? At this moment, Mukhadin denied a repetition. He had this. This position, if you go back with a check right now, and Norbek repeats, that's the second time the position happens already. But instead, Mukhadin steps the other way, gives a check. Bishop d1, queen f4, and now we've got a different dynamic. He slides in from here. The difference from this square and checking from here is that if you go to h3, now the queen has another square coming in, from f2, hitting on h3 and setting that up. Instead, queen to f3 was played, taking control of the f line, defending h pawn. And Yavanka, this is where we are. Some more moves, some more checks. King goes over to g2. Again, the idea of playing on the dark squares, check on d2, check on g1, keeping an eye on the bishop. White just trying to survive, and luckily you've got a check on d5, a double check, but then White just blocks it with his own bishop. King h6. Look at how Mukherjee has put every single piece on dark squares in this game.
Yeah, and I also got to point out one thing. Take a look at how he's improved all of his pieces as well. So now the king is there on h6. For the time being, it's pretty safe. The
No
knight
checks.
on g7 no longer pinned. And I'm seeing that there could be a future where the knight will come into e6. Now, how to get that going?
Immediately. Why not?
Can you do it and allow a pawn takes h5?
I want to also point out, just so instructive, how these grandmasters handle opposite color bishop positions. Yavanka, from a strategic perspective, Mukherjee has placed every single piece on the dark squares that's controlled and has full control of the dark square bishop that Mukherjee has. Notabek has done the exact same thing, placed everything on the light squares, including his pawns, and that's the defensive strategy you want. You play on the squares you dominate.
Yeah.
When you've got a different color, opposite color bishop complex.
Absolutely. And also, I just want to point out how actively both sides have handled this type of position as well, how they've not been afraid to go on the front foot. They've constantly gone on the active, but at the same time, taken care of their respective kings. And now the big question for Mukherjee as he goes into, I think, he's got just under 16 minutes on the clock, is whether he should take on g4 and then go knight e6 or just go knight e6 directly.
What are the chances that Mukherjee pulls off a Nigel shot and starts marching with the king up the board on the dark square?
I think it's
Just
going to be very
like this.
difficult. I think that's going to be very, very difficult. I think it's almost certainly not going to happen, but never say never.
I'm saying never
I,
on this
I'm
one.
saying never on this one as well. But I mean, it would be a beautiful thing if it did happen, but of course it won't. But that knight is going to do the walk.
Yes.
And so let's dive
Let's
in.
do
Knight e6.
Directly, or you
Three.
want to take on g4 first?
We can establish which one is most
Okay,
accurate
so let's
later
go
on.
knight
Like
e6.
knight e6.
The only point was that you can take on h5,
Yes.
and this was what was worrying me slightly.
And can we
Because I thought you could
ignore
take,
it?
and the problem here, Yavanka, look at the bar rise.
No, no, no.
Suddenly, bishop goes over to c2, and this is such a beautiful mating pattern and geometry in chess. I see you have a check, but after queen g2, your checks dry up.
Yep.
White threatening a checkmate in one. I don't think you survive this.
Well, this is where I wanted to use a technique that you and David both taught me. Is called the umbrella. So after pawn takes h5,
You don't recapture.
I don't recapture. That pawn is the umbrella. So maybe the knight can go. Now, where should she go, or where should it go? Knight to f4.
f4 to
Yeah.
block the queen out. Okay. Wow.
Don't like that one. Rook, I don't know. Maybe there's no threat though.
Yeah, and then if there's no threat, you just take here. Because again, queen d5 check, there's always this annoying bishop block.
Yeah.
And black hasn't gained anything, but this is so complicated. Maybe, Ivanka, let's start with pawn takes
Exactly. You've got a hiding place for the king on g5. And
now let's go
now
in with
let's
the
go knight e6. So queen h3, king g5, no more checks.
Yes.
Thank you. Although, hang on a second, is there some... No, the bishop is hanging on d1, so you don't have time. What is it? He's reaching for the pawn.
He's going to go for this line. I think he takes pawn, not allowing Notabek any trades on h5. Have you noticed that Notabek has a lot of nervous energy on the board? Like there's a lot of movement and, the death stares that happen. He looks very confident, but there's also this energy emanating from him.
Yes. Well, I've noticed generally with chess players is that they're either quite frantic with their movements, like we're seeing here, he's bouncing up and down, or
And
they're
just
just like
behind
dead
him,
still.
You've got a dead still Arjun Aragaisi who's
Yeah.
getting ready to make his own move, I believe.
But Arjun Erigaisi is also a pacer. I've seen him countless times walking up, down, and around. I'm also a pacer. I think you are as well, Tanya. I've seen you many times.
Giving away a lot of trade secrets here.
Yes. But some people are just incapable of sitting still.
Yes.
This was a problem I always had since I was a child. So it is what it is. Walk up and down the board. It's a
Wow.
it's a way to calm down
It
because,
is.
also it's a way to focus the mind. So for me, when I'm pacing, I'm just
Novi,
concentrating.
we
Yeah.
won't go there, but Arjun has walked into that line that we were looking at against Hans Niemann. Queen has landed on h3. There is a battery. Do you want to just quickly check into that?
Let's quickly check in whilst there is some thoughts in this particular position. Yes, let's go. Oh, he's going to reach for the knight. So knight e6 is what we're expecting Mukhadin to play. And here we're seeing on the live board, this is exactly the position between Arjun Erigaisi and Hans Niemann.
We left it last here. The queen lines up on h3 with a deadly idea. Check. Smash that rook down the board. And preempting that, Hans sidesteps, keeping the tension. And Jovanka, the only move for Arjun Argaisi is to go in with the queen right now. Everything else, the balance shifts in Hans's favor. Queen h8, and it remains equal. The only move Arjun has, I believe he's about to reach for his queen. It's what he set up. He needs to not fear any checks on the a
But
file.
that's scary, Tanya. I mean, when we saw this, we were like queen h8, queen a1, knight g3 check. We got to show it again.
Let's do that. Queen h8, you've got the idea of coming in with the rook to h7, and very smart. Notice how Hans Niemann first moved the king away, and only when the queen lands that you go in with this check, only square for the king. Now knight g3 is possible if the queen was on h3, and had Hans done it earlier, there were tactics.
We don't have
On
to
the board.
wait. He finds it.
He finds it. We're going to see this being played out. Knight to g3, and the king will march up the board, and this is what we're expecting to land here. Maybe you can give... Ivanka, you have to take the...
No, you can't take the knight.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait, if you don't take the knight, you're down a piece. Is there a perpetual?
Well, this was
There
what
is
I
a perpetual.
wanted. Okay, rook h7. Bishop takes rook.
Only
Let's
move?
take it, only move. Now the king is going to walk. Let's walk all the way. Tanya, there you go. I'm pointing to... I want to do a massive king walk.
Whoa, whoa. I just walked into a checkmate.
Why is that a checkmate?
I want to show that. Look at this. You sacrifice your whole house. And suddenly the bishop...
Look at this.
You know what? The magic number is 3. Guess what? You've got 3 attackers right now.
You do, and the pawn on a4. Oh, you're doing such a mean job of depriving the king of the b5 square. That was beautiful, Tanya.
Unbelievable.
And also not so easy to see on the horizon that your king will get trapped on c4 and checkmated.
Okay, we gotta go a little slow on this. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna point out that at this moment, Hans Niemann, very smart decision, doesn't immediately rush in, which would have been a big mistake because now king e2, a check here, the queen takes the knight, and the black queen is hanging. He first provokes Arjun to enter with his own queen. King to f7, Arjun finds the only move in the position to keep the balance. And now Hans will go in with this idea. And after a check, wherever you go, king f3, king e3, maybe f3 is the square you want. And this felt like the more human move to us, Ivanka.
Yeah.
Knight takes rook.
It has to be played because otherwise rook h7 is going to be lethal.
Yes.
So rook h1, and
Oh.
now the queen moves.
You know what the crazy part is?
What?
Okay. I'm going to try. Just stay with me, chat, on this. Just stay with me. The crazy part is that in this position, if Arjun chooses the square to e3, after knight takes rook, because in many lines the king defends this pawn, you have to give a check to walk into the perpetual.
Yeah.
Rook takes knight, loses on the spot. Ivanka, this is lost because your king is in the open, the black queen comes in with a check, and there are all these checkmating ideas on the board.
But there's still rook h7 in the air.
Now it does not work because the queen will
Because
come
the
back to
king,
defend.
the king will go to e7.
Exactly. After a check,
Takes. Yeah,
takes.
you can wiggle a little bit.
You just wiggle and you play with your queen coming
Yes.
back. The problem is that if, on the other hand, after king to a3, knight takes rook, Arjun will have to sacrifice not one but 2 rooks in a row
Yes.
and find that he is drawing this position. Only way to do it. Now, if you step up to f3, it's a whole different story. After knight takes rook, there's no perpetual after rook h7. This loses for white. Bishop
Wow.
takes rook, queen takes rook, and black's king indeed marches up the board.
Oh, because there is no c4.
There is no c4, there's no king on e3 taking
okay,
away. There's no third piece in the
let's,
attack.
let's show that checkmate again because it was such a beautiful idea. Because you think
Imagine the king here. This was the winning move. We'll show
yes,
it. We'll
we'll
show it.
show that. Yeah, and here there is no because the king will walk to c4 to d3
Just on the light
and
squares.
just like that. And it really hinges on seeing this super sophisticated checkmating idea.
Unbelievable. Again, to finish the point, knight takes rook, rook takes knight, holds the balance. Now, after queen to a2, for example, white does have a move to bring the queen into the game. There's no check on the e file, finishing the game off.
But this one feels like, honestly, it's just black who's having the fun.
All the fun in the world, right? You come back with your queen to e6, you centralize it, no
Yeah.
problem at all. Hans Niemann needs to calculate all of this. If queen a1 check is given, king will step up, knight check. You go to e3, Arjun, you'll have to sacrifice the rook for a second time. You go to f3, you'll have to figure out that you need to take the knight on h1, Yovanka. That
Okay.
is absolutely nuts.
That is completely crazy and deep and all the words. But after king to e3, just to show that the king cannot run, after rook h7, bishop takes, there is no block because you have queen takes f5 and there's no solace there. But if the king decides, I want to go on a walk, the queen will give another check. And then the king runs up to d5. The evaluation bar goes nuts. And this is the whole point. c4, king takes c4. And actually, believe it or not, there is hardly any squares for the king, and after queen to e6, it's checkmate.
And
Ends
now
the game.
visualize this position with the king on f3,
Yeah.
and it does not work.
It does not work because king goes to d3.
Everything's hanging.
Beautiful.
Unreal stuff. And this is not easy to figure out at all. We are making moves on the board and working our path towards it. Arjun and Hans have to calculate all these lines in their head.
Totally. And for Hans as well, he has to work out exactly all about the checks because that is coming on the horizon. And it's so difficult to see the subtleties as well, Tanya, between the king going to e3 and to f3. Wow.
But
Complicated.
he's very complicated, and Hans isn't rushing with the check on a1. He also looks pretty calm on the camera right now. What else is he thinking about?
Well, I don't think you can just waste time, Tanya, because it feels like rook h7 is
Massive.
massive threat. So if you were to go, where to put the queen? I'm just going to come up with a random non-move. b5. It's a random. And you see
It's just
it
checkmate.
completely. Bishop takes rook, rook takes, king runs, and this is a checkmate that you've shown before, queen e5. That's game over. So rook h7 is a really deadly check. You have to take measures against that.
Yes. Let's stay with our live position right now. Let's go full screen on our players. I want to just see what is the clock situation, what's their mindset right now. Yovanka, queen a1, and it's going to get super fun this game. Hans Niemann, he's getting ready to make his move currently.
He is getting ready to make his move, take a decision, and my read is that he is working out queen a1, knight to g3, and I keep seeing Arjun's king, well, his eyes start to the center, so I reckon he's thinking about this e3, f3 business, and I think he's decided king e3. But because look, he's like firmly looking at the e3 square.
Wow. All right. And we're getting some updates. Maybe we just quickly move. Okay. By the way, queen a1 check on the board. We'll quickly come back to this. But let's go over to our...
Okay, there's already a result, Tanya. It was a win for Vidit against Nicholas Theodoru. This is what we expected.
Last position on the board, Yovanka. We'll just have that up and move really quickly to the other one. The white knight about to come into the game. Nothing to be done here. The black knight dominated. Knight e4 in next. And this is where Nicholas resigned. But let's go back to Hans Niemann versus Arjun Aragaisi because queen a1 has been played. King has moved up to e2. Knight has landed on g3. This is what we have as we see Vidit and Nicholas on the camera. They're analyzing their position. But let's get our players on the board right now. Good move by Hans Niemann. The question... I don't think you want to move to d3 and walk into f4 check ideas.
No, you absolutely do not want to involve the bishop into the game. So he's just deciding king e3, king f3. Arjun, what are you going to play?
Also, I want to point out king to f2 doesn't feel human because knight takes rook comes with a check.
Yes. He's
f3. He goes the other way, which means now after knight takes rook, Arjun cannot land that rook on h7. He has to pick up the knight.
He has to pick up the knight because of this deep idea. Knight takes rook, played by Hans, and now, wow, rook takes knight, only move.
Immediately, he's calculated his way through. Arjun Aragaisi has. And now for Hans Niemann, you want to bring your queen back into the attack, threaten some checks, currently on the fire on a1.
Absolutely. Queen a2 is what we're anticipating.
Maybe just take the pawn as well.
Could also do that. Queen a4, but either way, The queen is going to drop to the c6 square, to this long diagonal, and start making the white king life unpleasant. So this one, I think the drama is a little bit over. But Tanya, you asked a question earlier on in the game between Nordebek and Mukhadin. And there you said, what are the chances of black walking up the king?
No, don't tell me. Don't say that. It's not on the board.
It's not on the board yet, but it's a
Okay.
possibility. It is something to
Ooh.
be thinking about. So if we go over to this game, so Mukhadin, let's bring up the cameras on our players. Norbek, his king is very shaky, but the whole point after knight to f4, it could have been possible to step up with the king, Tanya, to g5, and I think it's very much going to be there in the air.
Well, as long as you're playing on the dark squares, again, that's the name of the game here. It's crazy what we have because both kings not safe at all. Both players only dominate a single color on the board. They are playing on the other color right now. The queen, knight, and bishop look menacing. The white's rook on b7 offside, but cuts off the black king as well. But Yavanka, if I had to pick a side, I'd want to be black here.
Yes, because king g5, get this, Tanya, it weaves a mating net. King g5, so queen h8.
Wow.
And suddenly the knight on f4 does a beautiful job of depriving the king of the g2 square. g1 is forbidden. And
That's
this
actually a
is
big
the
threat.
plan.
This is a big threat.
It's huge.
It's not a back on the move right now. Can we just quickly see what
Yes.
happened there since we left it last, Yavanka? It was just a few moves in. It was around here. Lots of checks were given. We see that first, Mukhadin, he unpinned himself. Then he rightly took the pawn and reroutes the knight towards the white king. White trying to take control of the squares here. We see Mukhadin jump in with the knight, taking away the g2 square. And this is where we are for Nordebek Abdusattorov. King g5, queen h8 has been sneakily set up by the Uzbekistan youngster here. It's crazy that a guy playing against Nordebek, and I'm calling the opponent the youngster because he's 19.
He's 19, youngest player, last minute replacement, lowest rated player. This is really a breakout tournament for Mukhadin. I mean, we all knew him as the second of Sindarov. We didn't know him like this.
The 2700 Slayer is what he's being called currently. Has taken down 3 of them in this tournament so far, Yavanka, including Vidit Gujarati, including Jan Nepomniachtchi and Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. And then, of course, another win over Nicolas Theodoru in round 2. What a storyline. He's had 6 out of 6 decisive game. And I wonder if this is going to be a 7th
This one, it
game.
doesn't look like it's going to finish in a draw anytime soon as the queen moves over to e1, setting up big threats.
And the idea is that now king g5 can be met with a check on e7, Yavanka.
Yes. Also, queen h4 is the move that queen e1 does indicate. Queen h4 and saying, hey, your king on h6, not entirely safe. So now you have to cover this check. So there aren't too many moves for Mukhadin.
And I think this move was absolutely essential. The more I look at it, the more I love that Abdusattorov found it, because the idea that you earlier mentioned, it looks almost unstoppable. For black, once you land on g5, you're going to be forced to plant your rook on h7. That doesn't look super attractive in so many of those positions. Let's just show that. For example, rook c7. And you know what's even more fascinating? Maybe king g5 is really strong here, but I was wondering, can I go back with my queen? And the reason why I came to this line is because after king g5, there's rook to h7 controlling the h8 square. But instead, starting with this, and there's nothing that can control the square on g5. And look at the bar. It confirms that black is winning here. So Nordebek Abdusattorov had to be precise. Queen e1, again, a multi-purpose move. Queen h4 is the threat, and queen e7 is the prophylactic defensive idea against king to g5.
Yes. And now the big question, though, is what is he? He's reaching for the queen. Queen f6.
Controls both
very
of them.
nice move. Controls h4.
And you can't really step in offering a trade because the queen does a fabulous job of landing on the other side of the board. And that, Yavanka, will be checkmate once the king steps up.
Yeah. So, in fact, what is the move for Nordebek to hold the balance? That is going to be a big question because it's not easy if you can barely move a piece. They're not coordinating at all well, as we see. Nordebek now thinking 16 minutes, and it's ticking down for him as he tries to find a move. Well, maybe we can just go full screen and on the players as we see Nordebeck thinking. And Tanya, actually, we're not going to go full screen on the players. We are going to go immediately to the game between Arjun Erigaisi and Hans Niemann because we are seeing a rook sacrifice on the board, but it's a version that works. So let's head there and see exactly what is going to unfold.
All right, so
Because
really quickly, this happened, Ivanka. Rook was picked up. The rook landed on g1 to block the threat on the queen. And this is where he went in with the brilliancy. The rook sacrifice is on the board. And the difference in all these lines is that the black king, it's an exchange sacrifice, firstly. The black king does not have a hiding space.
okay, so let's kind of be concrete about it. King runs to
E6.
e6, queen
H6 check.
And the king runs up the board and says, "Yeehaw! I'm going up to d3. Thank you very much."
You really are. And I'm just wondering, is it because you can't really take the pawn on b6, black's threatening a checkmate in one. I just want to point. Let's just show that. Love showing a checkmate as a
Yes,
commentator.
it's golden rule. We have to do that.
So what's the move here?
Well,
Because there's no check.
Can we do c4?
It might be forced.
c4, king takes c4.
Got 2 pawns. Let's take this one.
And now we run with the queen. I like your queen checking on the diagonal.
I don't like checking here on c6 because king d3
Yes.
and I'm not seeing a second check.
Yeah.
So it's got to be this.
Yeah.
So that we've got a check on e2 or on e3.
Yeah, and if you run one more square to d3, then queen will go to e2, king c2.
Oh, this is bad news.
Yeah.
Wait, bishop e3?
And here we have a drawn queen and pawn endgame, Tanya. After all of those shenanigans.
Drama.
Yeah.
All right, so wait, let me just take a stock of this. We saw this check here. Arjun stepped up, knight takes rook, and the material is balanced. And this is where things start to get crazy because he goes rook to g1.
Yes, and we were looking at dropping the queen back, queen taking pawn, in which case it didn't work.
And I think it was very smart by Arjun to go in because rook takes rook, queen takes rook. And guess what? It's the white king that starts feeling the heat. There are all these checks, bishops about to line up, the white queen kind of helpless, the black king feeling safe for at least the move. And this would have been a little bit of trouble to solve for Arjun. Instead, I think he just calculated his way through to the draw. Rook h7 played here. A brilliancy. My rook. Oh, my rook.
Oh my goodness. Take it off the board. You have to. Forced. And then queen takes bishop. Only move.
Only move.
And now...
Try to hide your view with the king.
Well, let's also show what happens if you try to block with a rook. Because there is no hiding. You can run, but you cannot hide. So rook to g7.
Yes, and just to point out that usually all these perpetual checks ideas work when your opponent's pieces are on another completely different rank. It's so hard to get them back into the defense of your king to block a check. Here, if you do it immediately, you take, and there's going to be a ton of diagonal checks right now. They're usually the strongest ones to give and the first ones that you should check. For example, you go here, give another check with the queen. You go to h7. Again,
back.
Just on this diagonal, you continue checking the black king.
You go around the houses there, but unfortunately there's no way out for the black king.
Just want to point out, don't give this check because suddenly the black rook steps in.
Well, apparently that's not even that bad either, but you don't want to be doing that, especially when you have a guaranteed draw. And we're seeing there is no block as Hans is going to start running with the king. He goes king to f6. Okay, so maybe this is the idea that after queen h6, there is a check, a rook block, rather. Could that be something that he's planning?
Queen h6. If you do a rook block, Yovi, are you sure you're ready to handle bishop g5 check?
No, I'm not sure. I don't think I would even touch that. No.
Yes, that's looking scary.
That's just looking very, very scary. So no rook block at all. So I guess you have to try to wiggle your way on the dark squares if you want to escape.
I'm not really seeing anything wrong. Maybe h4 I wouldn't check, I wouldn't touch, but queen h8, queen h6 looks pretty strong. Both these cases, you won't really have the option to block with your rook.
Yeah, I agree. So queen h6, and let's put it on the board why you don't really want to be blocking with the rook.
Let's show that if you step in.
Yeah, and you see the evaluation bar just goes up. So queen...
Bishop g5.
Bishop g5 looks... No!
Whoa!
Well, queen f8.
And this is best at a draw.
Okay, queen f8 was the other alternative, which looked really nice. King has to sidestep, and now you can...
Oh!
You give a check. Oh, I thought you could go queen e8.
But then the king goes back. I thought we disconnect.
Yes, yes. Disconnect. Yes.
If
King
king
takes pawn.
d7, there's queen f7. If king takes pawn, well,
Queen takes pawn.
yes, queen takes pawn. Because I just realized that queen f7 runs into rook e6.
Yes.
Beautiful stuff, and you end up with an extra piece if you are Arjun Aragaisi. So after queen h6, rook to g6 walks into a deadly trap. If that's not the case, I think Hans just repeats. He just goes back. By
Yeah.
the way, queen h6 on the board. Do not play rook g6, Hans Niemann.
No, he's not going to do that.
No, he doesn't. He's been so tactically sharp this whole game.
No, he's not going to be
He just comes
falling for
back.
a basic one.
He's inviting the repetition. Let's go full screen on our
Yeah,
players.
let's go full screen and see what happens next. After the queen gives a check once more, what is Hans going to do? Is he going to make a run for it with the king to e6, or is he going to simply repeat? But I got to say, both of these players have played a great game, kept us entertained.
You know, not all draws are made equal, even if this ends in a perpetual. This is the kind of chess you love, right? Where
Yeah.
both players push each other to the edge of their imagination, coming up with these creative ideas with these beautiful attacking tricks all along. White's going for the throat, black's going for the throat, and in the end, looks like it's about to end peacefully. But the game itself, anything but peaceful.
Yeah, a really combative game, I would say. As you mentioned, White was really playing quite aggressively, but then so was Hans. And in the air, in the end, all's fair. And there we're seeing some hesitation, some thought from Hans whether to kind of prolong the game with king to e6, or is he going to go king to f6?
And we go into our playing arena. Hans Niemann, I think he's
he's
ready to repeat.
He is ready to make the draw.
Let's go to our players. Let's go full screen on them right now. And Arjun Aragaisi agrees that there's nothing to be done here, Ivanka. And there we see the handshake. What a fantastic fight this has been as the players. They share a smile because they do share the same sentiment. What a game is what both of them are thinking.
What a game. It was full of sparks. It was full of fireworks. It was full of deep calculation and brilliant motifs. Definitely one game to keep playing and playing through, but fantastic effort from both of these players, and in the end, a very fair result. And as we see the players analyze there, just discussing ideas, Tanya, do we listen in or do we try to follow the other game?
Well, I believe we're not getting the audio in just yet, Ivanka, but this has been a fascinating fight. There's another very fascinating fight with a lot on the line still there. And there we see Hans, he says, complicated position, complicated battle. But both these players finding such incredible resources to stay alive and put pressure on the opponent every move of the way.
I know. We could have seen absolutely everything in this game. King runs, brave kings, mating attacks, everything. And in the end, a perpetual check deciding the game. And a draw between Arjun Erigaisi and Hans Niemann. We move on to the game between Nordebek Abdusattorov against Mukhadin Madaminov. Now, here we're seeing Madaminov try to take the initiative as he gets control over the dark squares. But the white rook has been allowed into the game. So, Tanya, maybe we can backtrack a few moves, because when we left it, queen f6 had been the move of choice. And it wasn't necessarily clear how Nordebek was going to activate all his pieces.
Really nice two last moves by the queen. I'll backtrack just a little bit here. Nordebek Abdusattorov finding the only resource to stop a deadly plan of a queen retreat and a king g5 checkmating idea by getting his own queen to the open line, setting up tricks on e7 and h4, which was handled with the queen coming back. And then white made a small move, rook to c7, always getting ready to sacrifice itself for the bishop if it is so needed right now to get rid of that deadly bishop. Denied is what Mukhadin said. Hits that rook back. The rook landed on c2, Ivanka, now eyeing another file to get into the game. I'm trying to understand which of these two players is playing for a win in this position.
I'm also confused as well. At first, I thought it was Nordebek. That was quite clear. He is, after all, material up. And now, are we going to be seeing a repeat as we see the knight jump from e6 to
I think
f4?
that question is about to be answered, Ivanka. Knight e6, bishop lands on d5, hitting that knight. And this is Mukhadin offering a repetition to Nordebek Abdusattorov. If he feels it's time to pull the brakes and there's nothing to be done against the black square domination that Mukadin has, he can just come back with the bishop to f3. And we might see a repetition with the bishop being hit, then the knight being hit, and back and forth. Nodibek Abdusatrov has the time to work this out. It's the only remaining game. We've had results all across with only one decisive game so far. It is Vidit Gujarati who gets his first win of the tournament. The other boards, the other three boards, ending in a draw.
Yes, and also because it was a fight between Vidit and Nicholas, who were both fighting for that last spot, actually the leaderboard has remained intact. If this finishes in a draw, if Mukhadin wins, then we are going to see Mukhadin, Madaminov take the lead with 5 points out of 7. And if Nordebek is the one that wins, then we're going to see Nordebek join his compatriot Shamsuddin Vohidov for the lead. So either way, we're still going to have some drama, especially as we enter the last two rounds. Big question though, is this going to finish in a repetition, or is Nordebek going to find a way to play on? He needs to move the bishop. That thing is very clear. Is it going to go to f3, in which case that would be a repetition, or is he going to go for something else?
And just to show that repetition that we're on about right now, this was the position where the rook retreated to c2 with ideas of giving a check on h2, knight to e6, hitting that bishop on f3, which was responded by the bishop planting itself to the central square. And now Mukadin returns with that knight. And Jovanka, if Abdusatrov chooses a different square, if he falls back to the bishop to g2, then he's kind of blocking the path of his own rook right now. It's a decision. The game would continue, and we'd get to know which player is ambitious. Let's take account of what's on the board right now. Nodibek Abdusatrov has an extra exchange, but Mukadin with a pawn as well. You do the math, that's 4 versus 5, but it's so much about the king's safety right now that we've got in front of us. Black with queen, knight, and bishop. Mukadin trying to put maximum pressure. Feeling wise, the black king feels just a little bit safe, a tad bit safer than the white king.
I completely agree. And also, just think about this, Tanya. In order for white to create some disturbance, you need to involve the rook and the queen. And the queen cannot leave the back rank because she has to guard against queen to a1. And we have a move, a bishop to f3, inviting the repetition. Now, the big question for Mukhadin, is he going to go knight to e6 and invite the repetition? He's reaching for a move. If he wants to play on, he can. But he's dropping the knight back.
He does go back, and that means that Mukadin is happy to bail out in this position, hitting the bishop. Jovanka, again, the same storyline where it's been an absolutely crazy game. It's been a race to each other's king, and now the player's looking at a repetition. Mukadin makes that move, leaves the chair. The ball is in Nodibek's court. If he goes back with the bishop to d5, that will be the second time that we've got this position.
Yeah, that would be the second time. And for Nordebek, I don't think he can get active here. I don't think he can get ambitious with rook h2 or the bishop going anywhere else, because the white king is so weak sitting there in the corner. And yes, it will prolong the game, but ultimately he cannot make any active inroads into the position.
Let's just say he decides to put the bishop on a different square. The question is, what is your progress here as black? As you pointed out, the white queen can't line itself up anywhere. Queen a1 check would be game over. The rook has maximized itself. And after knight f4, you're kind of running out of moves right now currently as white. Jovanka, it just feels like Nodibek will be practical and objective about his position. And he's really pushed Mukadin to the edge in this one. But Madaminov with all the answers, and this time it's Madaminov with the death stare.
It is Madaminov who is thinking, what are you going to do, Nordebek? You have 10 minutes in the bank to ponder over whether to accept a repetition, or are we going to go for something else? Well, Nordebek thinking hard, but ultimately, one thing that we've pointed out time and time again, in positions like this, it's always about piece activity and king safety. White might be an exchange up, but as compensation, Madaminov has the dark squares. He has a potential attack against the white king, and white can never relax and go on the counterattack.
As he keeps glancing up at his opponent. For Mukadin, what a breakout performance this has been at UZChess. Just confidently blasting his way right now, and he will be going into those final 2 rounds as a leader if he's able to hold this position. You know, comes into the tournament as the lowest seed, becomes the top seed slayer here. 2 wins, 2 losses, 2 more wins, 4 out of 6, and looking at Nodirbek Abdusattorov confidently with an exchange sacrifice and keeping the dynamics in the position. This has been a dream run for the Uzbekistan youngster, all of 19 years old. And when he looked back, I think this will be the tournament where people will start taking his name.
Very seriously. And Tanya, you mentioned it, it has been a dream run. He's also got 18 rating points in the bag to boot for now, and he'll pick up some more with a draw against Nodirbek Abdusattorov, the highest rated seed. And take a look at this. Nodirbek says, no, we're going to play the game on. It's not going to be a repetition for now.
And I do see the king did move ahead, Ivanka. King to g2.
Yeah, king to g2, and now it is questions for Mukhidin. What is he going to do? Does he try to hold the balance? Well, maybe he'll also step back with the king to
It's
g7.
like he's ready.
Yes, he's ready.
He's ready with his response, Ivanka. He does just say, I'm sidestepping any checks with the queen on the h line. Again, just playing with his king on the dark squares and just keeps everything under control. It has to be frustrating for Nodirbek Abdusattorov, who's had a good result so far against the Uzbekistan youngster, but this one has not been easy. Another Uzbekistan youngster arrives.
Exactly. And his name is Mukhidin Madaminov. And now Nodirbek has to again think about ways to start slowly improving his position. A queen can post up to c3, but there is going to be a block with a bishop on d4. Say no trade for you. And I gotta also point out that Madaminov's bishop is so beautifully placed. It anchors the a7 pawn. It can also step up to c5, in which case it can defend the d6 pawn. And the knight is just so pretty sitting there on e6, getting ready to jump to f4.
I do give full credit to Abdusattorov not immediately bailing out and then just keeping the game going. Because that's what gets you the results at the end, right? The idea that the game goes on, which means that there's a chance for both players to go wrong. But when you are hungry for that win, these are the chances that you need to make. You need to create a knight and a pawn for an exchange currently. Position dynamically balanced right now. I'm just wondering if white can start activating the queen right now. Queen to e4. I really want to come in with some checks if I'm allowed to do that. But I fear that I'm walking into, maybe you just block everything. Bishop to c5 and no more rook to c8 ideas.
Yeah, that is definitely something that you can do as we drive into the position. Queen to c5 is definitely very tempting. It was also tempting for me because I've been trying to get knight f4 to work to go d5. But whether you want to be doing this, rook to c4 is the move played. And what does this idea have in mind? So he wants to line up the rook onto e4 and just keep everything tight.
And I wonder if this is the moment that Mukhidin decides to reroute his knight. It's served its purpose on f4. Can I try to destabilize your bishop on f3? Knight to d4, hit that pawn on b5, hit your bishop on f3.
That would be a great move. One tactical point I just wanted to mention.
Yes.
I'm not sure whether it's any good because you are changing the whole construction is to go d5. Whether one really wants to be doing that, I don't know, Tanya. Because you cannot take that bishop because of knight too.
Oops, sorry.
Whoops.
The power still remains level.
Oh my god.
Okay, this has to be you just give up the knight, the
Yes.
rook, and then your queen infiltrates.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the king will hide on the dark square.
This is easier to explain.
Yes, very easy. But if you don't take that pawn after you go d5, and you see it's already a mistake, rook to c6, knight to f4, and I guess the king will simply step up. And there's a beautiful harmony now to the white position. So, yes, don't break the defensive.
He's reaching for the knight, and it looked like it's landing at the center of the board, Ivanka. So. That was the feeling I got with that knight.
Yeah.
Reach out.
You don't need to reinvent the wheel. The knight is heading over to d4. Start playing the pressure on the bishop.
He goes the other way.
He goes knight f4
goes
check.
Back. Knight f4 check.
Do you think we're going to see any rage-baiting moves from Nodirbek?
The thing is, if Nodirbek wants to finish this off, which I don't think he does because he just declined a repetition. There's the idea that we spoke about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to hide from checks would be to to do a queen trade, and then opposite color bishop is just to draw immediately. I'm going to show that line really quickly, Ovi. If you want to draw and you're not a backup Abdusattorov, this is handshakes instantly.
Mm-hmm.
If the king goes anywhere on the h line, you've got checks on h4. If queen f7, that's a draw after a trade. You could also just pick up the pawn.
Yeah.
Result does not change. Notabek wants to rage bait, then he just goes up with the king.
Yes, let's do that. But I also was wondering whether he's going to mess around. Oh,
Oh!
good thing. Rook takes knight.
King g3 would have kept the game going, but instead Notabek immediately takes it. We'll see the queen swoop in. Yavanka, is it handshake soon enough?
Okay.
I think this is the moment.
This is definitely a draw offer from Nordebek. There, he looks at his opponent. Queen takes rook and a handshake. It is a draw.
And just like that, the game ends. It's been a feisty firework of a game, this one as well. Yavanka, so much action here. You know, it started as a slow game as an Italian and then built up so nicely with creative attacking ideas and sacrifices in the middle game. Mukadin Madaminov giving up an exchange for play and domination on the dark squares. And at the end, keeping the pressure going. You can see the two players discussing. And he's pointing out at the T4 square, I believe, in that moment. And look at that. You know what Madaminov is saying? I think he's looking at the line that you should not have given me a check. You should have taken that knight instantly because you need my king on g1. I'll just quickly show that. The players were highlighting the d4 square. Notterbeck, and my guess is the moment when Madaminov, and I'm just going to go slightly back. Again, this is speculation, but look at that. Madaminov is trying to calculate what really happened there.
Yeah. And we're going to go back to that moment where queen to e3 check was played a few moves earlier. And the whole point was he could have played queen takes knight instead. And then there was a beautiful point that the king, if it ran to h1,
if you take on c7, and my guess is this is what Nordebek was pointing at that d4 square, saying that you had a check at this moment, bishop to d4. And this just spoils everything. King f1, there's queen f2, and if you go here, there is bishop to e5. I'm not sure if this was the line they were looking at, but he kept saying d4, d4, and then we saw Mukadin. Oh my god, I missed something.
Yeah.
And this was the moment things turned around.
This definitely was a moment where things started to go in Nordebek's favor, but for Mukadin, I think he'll be very happy with the result. It was a really tense game, you know, and look at the final position. Well, not this one, but a few moves earlier, and both kings exposed. So much play happening, so many possibilities that the two had to proceed with a lot of caution, and that kind of game takes its toll. And Tanya, we've had such an exciting day. We had two draws, and I would say they're very straightforward draws. We had a win from Vidit as he defeated Nicholas Theodorou, and also some super exciting chess.
We had two technical draws, which finished quite early on, and the positions were balanced. Then we had Vidit score his first win, and then we had two absolutely crazy draws on the board, where anything could have happened, Yavanka. We could have had 3 decisive games today. The players really woke up in Tashkent and chose violence, is the feeling that you get with the chess that we had. And it was fantastic. For Mukadin Madaminov, the dream run continues in Tashkent, taking down the superstar Nordebek Abdusattorov, holding him, not taking down, but holding him to a draw in a big, big fight there. The first draw of the tournament for Madaminov.
Yes, the first draw might not be the last, but let's take a look at today's results. As mentioned, we had 2 perfect games of chess. We also saw Vidit. He managed to get his first win against Nicholas Theodorou, and those 2 bottom games between Nordebek and Mukadin and Arjun against Hans, they set the board on fire. And that means that the standings are more or less intact after yesterday. We just see a switch around on the bottom board that it is now Nicholas Theodorou who is at the last place. But we still have our 2 co-leaders in the shape of Shamsuddin Vohidov and Mukadin Madaminov, and they are being chased by half a point, Nordebek Abdusattorov. So still the Uzbeks out in front.
Wow, and that just means, maybe another Wesley tweet about the Uzbek hospitality as we see the way this tournament is progressing. The top 3 spots held by Vokidov, Madaminov, Abdusatrov, and then right behind we've got a bunch of chasers with 3.5 points. It's still anyone's tournament with only half a point separating the entire field from top to bottom, Jovanka, from Vokidov to Nicolas Theodoru. It's just a half a point, but it is going to be about those players who are at 3.5 currently to 4.5, and we've got 8 of them.
Yes.
We've got 8 players fighting for championship currently with only 2 rounds remaining, but it's been an Uzbekistan showdown so far.
It has. And looking ahead to tomorrow, just 2 rounds remaining. Let's take a look at the pairings for tomorrow. And as always, we are going to be treated to a spectacle. It's even more exciting knowing that there aren't too many games left. And these are the pairings for round 8. And Tanya, what can we see? We already see on the second board that it's going to be showdown between Mukhadin Madaminov against Arjun Erigaisi.
It's the India-Uzbekistan rivalry that continues when the tournament matters so much. And I'm going to point out another pairing to watch out for: Vokidov, the other leader, taking on Vidit. For Vokidov, is this the moment that he strikes at an out-of-form Vidit? The big question, but all eyes are going to be on that top board. Way beyond the standings there, Jan Nepomniachtchi plays Hans Niemann, and what a story that has been since their Belgrade matchup, which ended 4-4. The prize distribution dispute that happened after that, everything documented well on Twitter, well on social media. The handshake that did not happen at the technical meeting here in Tashkent. And after all that drama, for the first time, Jan Nepomniachtchi will face Hans Niemann over the board. And I'm predicting no handshakes tomorrow.
Okay, well, that one is certainly going to be a grudge match and one we can all look forward to. Drama both on and off the board. That is what we want. But that is where we will leave it tonight. The clear leaders still out in front, and the chasers, they are still hanging on. Anything can happen as we have 2 rounds remaining. Thank you very much, Tanya. It has been an absolute blast. Thank you, everyone at home, for following along. It's certainly been most fun, but we'll catch you all tomorrow. Same time, same place. It's the penultimate round. See you.